What would you do if you found yourself attracted to the same sex, but your religious beliefs insisted that was wrong? Well, in New Zealand, there are people who say they can help, who say there's a cure. Known as gay conversion therapy, it's illegal in some parts of the world, but not here. We've found people offering to do it. Matt Chisholm with this investigation and a warning some themes and language are provocative.
Your attraction can absolutely be changed.
A sexual relationship between one man and another man isn't part of God's plan.
Coming before God and just asking him to heal me from this disease.
No one is born that way. And so if that's the case, it must be possible to change.
They're saying there's a huge problem here and we can fix it.
Conversion therapy, spiritual healing, praying the gay away.
Alcoholics change, thieves change, all sorts of people change.
This is undercover footage of therapy that has many different names.
We need to rewire your brain, and it is completely doable.
No matter what you call it, the end goal is always the same: to change or suppress someone's homosexuality.
It's the underlying thing that anything's possible for God. So if we're struggling with same-sex attraction, then God can fix that.
Aucklander Jim Marjoram held that belief for 40 years. A gay man hiding his true identity in the church.
Most churches have someone there who will engage in some sort of pray away the gay.
The argument: homosexuals are broken.
Broken in that something has caused us to be gays, like trauma, sexual abuse, bad parenting.
If people are putting their hand up and they're saying, I don't want to be gay, what's so wrong with helping them in this way?
Nobody can change. So no matter how hard we try, we're fighting a losing battle. It drives people into different forms of mental illness, which include depression, anxiety, and a host of other things.
Bless me today that you'd bless my friends and my family. That
26-year-old Ryan Curran always believed church was his calling.
At a really early age, I just knew that the whole God thing was real for me.
Despite always knowing he was gay.
How do people in Pentecostal type churches feel about homosexuality?
That it's a sin and you are deemed to hell. Some churches, that they could be very extreme, where they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, but you now have to leave the church.
Not wanting to be cut off from his church family, the teenage Ryan chose to suppress his sexuality while tolerating their attitude.
You'll be having coffee or something and then all of a sudden it turns to the gays, or things like, they recruit in public bathrooms. Like, you just think, why am I here? Like, what's my purpose on the earth if I'm good for nothing, and that I'm a mistake and should be shot and put in a gas chamber, do you know what I mean? So...
You heard all those things?
Those are the things I've heard, yeah.
What would you do if you were out and about and saw a good-looking man?
I would begin to probably pray and ask that God would take those thoughts captive. In the name of Jesus, I command these spirits to leave right now. Holy Spirit,
this is what that looked like in private.
In the name of Jesus, I rebuke you, Satan.
In church?
Every single Sunday, without fail, coming before God and just asking him to heal me from this disease.
And the thought was you could pray this disease away?
That was definitely my hope.
Was that the commonly held belief within the church you went to?
Yeah, definitely a commonly held belief, yeah.
But all the prayer in the world didn't work. At 18, the church intern started seeing men.
I always felt like I was living a double life.
Desperate, at 19, Ryan confided to someone in his congregation and was sent to a Christian counsellor.
What I was told was that if I have a healthy lifestyle, if I read my Bible, if I eat right and have enough exercise, that God would be able to heal me from this disease. And I did think, is there some truth in this?
In Romans 8 verse 1,
Ryan became a successful youth pastor, but trying to get into heaven was a living hell.
I would go to gay bars, hook up with whoever, and just get really, really drunk. It got to the point, I must admit, where my life was out of control.
Torn between religion and his sexuality, Ryan made the toughest decision of his life, to walk away from his church career.
I always felt like that was the purpose that God had placed me on the earth for, and to step away from that has just been something that has been really difficult for me.
A few months later, alone, Ryan came out as a gay man online. That same night, he tried to kill himself.
I woke up the next morning, I'm in the psych unit, and all I did was cry and cry and cry for the next 2 weeks. And because one, I didn't succeed, and two, because I just knew my life at that moment was the worst that it's ever been.
Wondering if there's anyone who I might be able to talk to about it.
Therapy to change someone's sexual orientation has been banned in some parts of Australia, Canada and the States. It's not illegal here, but...
Psychologists are not supposed to practice it. Like, according to the New Zealand Psychologists Board, we can only practice ethically, and it's unethical.
We wanted to know how widespread gay conversion therapy is in New Zealand. It wasn't hard to find websites promoting the practice. So Jay went undercover as a young Christian, struggling with same-sex attraction.
Do you think conversion might be possible for me?
It was surprisingly easy to find people willing to help.
Conversion's possible for anyone.
We arranged meetings with many of them.
I'm a third-year trainee counsellor.
Jay was referred to Natasha Ellis through Living Wisdom, a Nelson-based religious counselling service led by David Riddell.
Homosexuality, a sexual addiction due often to imprinting, not always, but often, before they were 8 or 10 years of age.
From his perspective, your attraction can absolutely be changed. He has never come across someone who has not been able to trace the cause of their same-sex attraction and therefore undo it.
With assurances like that, hardly surprising David Riddell's busy.
Yeah, he's about 3 months in advance looking.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are those all people who are going through what I'm going through?
A lot of them are.
Today though, Natasha shares this view on gay lifestyles.
I know of a bowel surgeon. He sees the effects on people's bodies of homosexual sex, and he says it's absolutely destructive. To put it crudely, a vagina is like a gumboot and an anus is like glad wrap. It is not designed for any kind of friction.
In their first session, Natasha offers Jay cards with sayings on them, which she says will help rewire his brain.
I want you to memorise them if they stick with you. Like rewrite them, read them every morning, every night, put them on your phone, text them to yourself twice a day.
The easy way out is to say I'm gay and to get into a gay relationship. That's actually the easy way out. Yeah, but it doesn't lead us to wholeness.
Maria Schmetzer is also offering help. She's the director of the John Paul II Centre for Life, a Christchurch-based Catholic organisation.
Do you think it's possible to go from having gay parents just being straight?
Yes, that's been the experience of lots of people. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Do we force it? No. No.
The Catholic Centre's specialisation, though, is celibacy, promoted through their Courage program.
So Courage itself offers a 12-step program. That's, like other organisations like AA and, Diet, and they have relationships with other guys, but not sexual relationships.
Do you think something has to fill the void that might be created by being celibate?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Chaste friendships and community. All of us need that. We can't exist on our own. It's a lonely vacuum.
Homosexual affection is disordered. The homosexual struggler needs healing of gender identity.
This was Jim Marjoram's gospel for a decade.
That is just outright wrong on every level.
His old conversion therapy manual.
This is horrific because it's enforcing something which is so out of date and ignorant, and it's based on the assumption that being gay is evil.
Based on assumptions like that, Jim was a gay Christian living in denial.
The whole culture was like, you can't be gay.
He married twice, fathered 2 kids.
So how did you live that lie year after year?
I spent all my life fluctuating between depression and suicide ideation.
For nearly a decade, Jim came here, a church on Auckland's North Shore.
How do you feel being back here?
Oh man, tell you the truth, squeamish.
A group called Living Waters would meet here to help people deal with what they called emotional, relational and sexual brokenness.
Was Living Waters conducting gay conversion therapy here?
Absolutely. They wouldn't call it that, but it was, without a doubt, gay conversion therapy. Yeah.
Jim says about 40 people came here every week from 2001 to 2009, the majority sent by their churches.
Everyone's desperate. You've had to have lived enough of that internal turmoil to go, I can't handle this anymore, I need a solution.
The Living Waters solution?
One of the key elements they play on is, like trauma, abuse and bad parenting. And every human being on the planet can relate to some aspect of that.
Did you think you were making progress?
In the first year or two, I thought, yes, this is great, I'm actually doing something.
After 3 years of therapy here, Jim the student became Jim the teacher, helping to run the program, a program that he says wasn't working.
I eventually had to admit to myself, I'm still just as attracted to men as I ever was. What I was doing was learning to suppress it.
How dangerous is that?
Well, we now know, of course, that it's extremely dangerous because you're shutting down a core part of who you are as a human being.
Jim says he offered false hope for 6 long years.
Do you hold yourself personally responsible for perhaps pushing people to the brink?
I do, I must admit, and I recognised wholeheartedly that I was doing incredible damage. Even still now, if I think about it too much, it's just awful.
The Living Waters program no longer exists. Jim now runs a support group for people struggling with their sexuality and their faith.
You know what we can do though, is we can fight that with love.
Jim may have changed his tune, but
there is no part of God's image that is homosexual.
We've found plenty of others who haven't.
The two can't really coexist.
I don't think they can.
Aucklander Les Gale is with Exodus Global Alliance and says he's helped people beat their same-sex attraction.
And it might take a year, it might take 2 years or whatever, but we will support them to give Christ time to do the healing. I had a group of 7, 3 marriages out of the 7 died.
Exodus Global Alliance is an offshoot of Exodus International.
And freedom can come amidst a life of struggle.
A Christian organisation which disbanded and apologised for its conversion therapy techniques back in 2013.
I never passed myself off as a counsellor. There are groups right throughout the Western world trying to outlaw our work.
But after 30 years, this registered school teacher, still teaching, isn't about to throw the towel in.
The trick would be for you and for me to meet weekly or fortnightly.
For therapy that we've found isn't just limited to churches and their affiliated ministries.
There was an expert who'd helped other people in this way who was telling me that I was going to get through it.
Like the other men in this story, Paul Stevens struggled to reconcile his same-sex attraction and his faith as a young man.
It's an immovable object meeting, another immovable object, basically.
When Paul told his youth pastor he was attracted to men, he says he was sent to a counsellor who worked out of an Auckland medical centre. He says someone from the church drove him to that centre and the church paid the counsellor's bill.
He talked a lot about how I could be changed from what I was feeling through counselling.
And that made sense at the time?
It did. I believed that if I believed hard enough and prayed hard enough and put enough work into changing, that I would be able to.
Paul went back time and time again.
I think what the therapy gave me, what I realised now, was false hope. And it meant that whenever I got to the point where I felt helpless and like I couldn't change, I felt like that made it my fault. It felt like I'd done something wrong.
Paul says he had at least a dozen sessions with the counsellor, therapy that helped keep him in the closet and desperate for 3 years.
I was incredibly isolated. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I was trying to hide who I was, and any hint that someone might see me for who I really was or spot something that they thought was gay was really terrifying for me.
The counsellor continues to operate out of the same medical centre.
I wouldn't even call it a therapy. I would call it a harmful intervention.
Clinical psychologist and sexuality expert Rita Charco says no one should be practising conversion therapy.
It leads to anxiety, depressive symptoms, and in severe cases, even suicide.
So is it possible to change someone's sexual orientation?
It's really difficult because people do say that they changed sometimes, but they try to suppress their natural instincts and needs, and they pretend that they are someone who they are not.
Dr Charco says people don't need to change their sexual orientation, even though some might think they're going to hell for being gay.
I would work with the going to hell concept rather than changing the sexual orientation.
She wants conversion therapy banned.
Because it's harmful, especially when it's happening to young people who are not in a position to make a decision. But the problem is that at the moment in New Zealand, anybody can call themselves a therapist.
So your advice to anyone who might be going to a religious group for help with same-sex attraction?
My advice would be that join a religious group where they accept your sexual orientation, because there are religious groups that are okay that you're gay or lesbian or transsexual or whatever you want to identify with.
But not everyone agrees. After the break.
Christ does the changing.
But you don't know how Christ does it.
Oh, for goodness sake, man, who knows how God works?
Welcome back. We return to our story on the controversial therapies offered for same-sex attraction and those people who offer to help.
But the Pope said, you know, God created you this way. Well, I'm sorry, he didn't.
This is gay conversion therapy, happening right here in New Zealand in 2018.
There's certainly plenty of evidence from plenty of people who have gone on the journey before who have been able to, undo same-sex attraction and develop heterosexual attraction.
Remember young Jay? He met with several people who said it was possible to change feelings of same-sex attraction.
It's not what God planned. How do we get to what God planned?
We wanted to ask them about their practices.
We're doing a story on how organisations work with people who approach them for help with unwanted same-sex attraction.
Oh, right.
But those people aren't as forthcoming as they once were.
We'd like to talk about the techniques you use and the promises you make.
I would not like to talk on air about that. I don't think one can do it justice on air.
Maria Schmetzer from Christchurch's Catholic John Paul II Centre for Life says what she does isn't counselling or conversion therapy.
I am not pushing intervention on anybody.
Yes, but you could argue that the Church does. The Church creates a problem, that homosexuality is sinful, for example.
The Church does not create problems. Someone expresses to me that they have unwanted feelings. That has nothing to do with the Church teaching. That's arising from within themselves.
Maria, professionals say that what you're trying to do can be very harmful to a person's well-being.
I am well aware what the American Psychological Association has to say on the matter. I'm not going to debate it. Thank you.
Maria, it's not just the American Psychological Association. She's just hung up on us.
Trainee counsellor Natasha Ellis, who is supervised by David Riddell, would also eventually hang up.
That anyone who comes in any capacity regarding any issue, I'm actually legally bound by confidentiality, so I won't be able to speak to anyone.
But let's say the person that you met recently was happy for you to talk about it.
I'm afraid, again, I am not going to be able to talk about anything like that because of my confidentiality requirements. And also, as a counsellor, I would never make any promise to be able to achieve any particular thing for any particular person.
As a counsellor though, Natasha, you have said that someone is able to change their sexual orientation. You've been quite emphatic about that.
Look, I'm afraid I cannot talk about anything that I've done with the counselling situation.
Free speech is going to go out the window if these people get their way.
Les Gale from Exodus Global Alliance disagrees with the professionals who he calls the pro-gay lobby.
They've been talking this bullshit for generations, just about, for decades anyway. While they're spouting on like this, we are still having people experience change through Christ's help.
How does Christ do it? How does Christ make that change?
I don't know how it works other than that we befriend people and support them while Christ does the changing.
But you don't know how Christ does it.
Oh, for goodness sake, man, who knows how God works? That's thick.
The school teacher, though, is adamant about one thing.
Stems from their psychosexual development early on in life.
Okay, so the Royal College of Psychiatrists say there is no substantive evidence to support the suggestion that the nature of parenting or early childhood experiences have any role in the formation of a person's fundamental heterosexual or homosexual orientation.
I don't believe them. I've given you more time than I think you deserve, but I'll put it to the board.
Exodus weren't keen for an on-camera interview. Ryan, Paul and Jim, though, have finally put their conversion therapy experiences behind them.
It made me who I am, going through that, actually.
I got to the point after my wife died where I thought I just can't live the lie any longer.
All three now happily living as openly gay men.
I'm not trying to hide, I'm not trying to put up a fake facade and not trying to justify my whole life. It's like I am who I am now, and you know, you take it or leave it, and that's great.
Still deeply religious, Ryan has a partner, Jerome. They married just a couple of weeks ago.
I've had people take advantage of me my whole life and sort of just get whatever they can get out of them. But the amazing thing about him is that not once through the whole 2 years of knowing him he's ever done that. Like, he's so genuine, and yeah, just his love for me is genuine, and so yeah, it's pretty amazing to sort of find someone like him. So
well, all of the people we filmed say they don't offer or practice gay conversion therapy. They say they're there to help those who come looking for it. We also spoke to David Riddell, who said he successfully converted around 100 people, but he was too busy to talk to us on camera.